Everyone has a story. It may not be glamorous or filled with adventure, but it's theirs. Welcome to Lyfting with Larry, the podcast that features the unique stories of everyday passengers from the world of rideshare.
Hi, welcome to the Lyfting with Larry podcast. I'm going to be your host, Larry, and this podcast was really born just out of a desire of mine to share with you some of the interesting stories from the passengers that I have as a rideshare driver. And I think today's story will certainly be interesting. I learned a little bit about Adam during our drive, but there's a lot more to his story that I haven't heard, and I look forward to hearing that today. So, Adam, welcome to the show, man.
I appreciate you having me on, man. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. So, Adam, if I remember correctly, you were born and raised here in Bowling Green. Is that correct?
Yeah. I've lived, I don't live here anymore, but I was born and raised here. Born 94.
Okay.
So 25 years old.
Okay.
Lived here for 24 years.
So you see some of the growth a little bit.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the growth. A lot more buildings especially on Nashville Road.
No doubt.
Yeah, I loved it here, but it was it's definitely not my town.
Sure.
I
Sure.
love the environment here, but for me, I just needed more things to do than go to the movies and eat. It's like the two things to do around here. It's a great family place. But
I understand. And one of my sons, he can't wait. He wants to go to New York City or Chicago or somewhere big. That's what he's waiting to get out of college and get there. So great. So I agree. It is a good place to kind of grow up and raise kids and stuff like that. But there is a limited amount of things to do in Bowling Green for sure.
Yeah.
So that's great. So grew up here. You have any siblings? Any brothers, sisters?
Yeah, I've got a sister, Allie. She's into family counseling.
Okay.
Yeah, she helps out troubled kids and stuff of that nature.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Yeah, and just mom and dad. Dad is in the restaurant business. Has been that way his whole life, and mom does everything else. I mean, she's done so many jobs. She was a hairstylist at one point, kindergarten aide, and now she's back at the house helping my best friend raises two newborn babies.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, a woman of many trades.
Yes, for sure.
Most mothers, it seems like, do wear many hats, it seems like.
Yeah. No, I'm not ashamed at all to say I still get my hair cut by my mom because she's a fantastic hairstylist. So.
Well, awesome, man. That's cool.
Whatever, man.
Yeah, it fits the budget too, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm pinching every penny I can moving to a new city.
I understand. So, you went to grade school here? Went to grade school?
Yeah, the train of education I had it was Lost River Elementary. Then I went to Moss Middle School, and then I went to Warren Central.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Warren Central, I know high school is kind of the time where we kind of start fitting into a group or a clique, or I think today they call it find your pack. You got to find your pack.
For sure.
So did you have kind of a particular group that you kind of fell into or fell in with?
Yeah, myself.
Okay.
No, I did have a couple close friends for sure. But yeah, I don't know. It was a weird time. I was still trying to figure out who I am. I'm still trying to figure out who I am now.
Yeah, me too. So.
Yeah. No, there's just in high school, everybody was so concerned about their image and everything, and I gravitated more towards the people who just didn't take life too seriously and just made fun and jokes of everything.
Right.
So that was who I usually hung out with.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, definitely. And we all, everybody goes their different way. For me, it was ROTC. That's where I found my group, and that's where I found like almost all my friends were. That's where I spent my time in high school and everything like that. But and even our kids are so different. We have like my son, he was in band and then got into acting.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of where he was at. Could not care less about sports. And then my bonus kids, they're very sports oriented. So a couple of them play lacrosse. My bonus daughter plays soccer, and they love that.
Yeah.
And so everybody kind of finds their own path and own way.
Yeah. And I before we move on, I should mention that the Dragon Band at Warren Central was a huge part of my life in high school.
Great.
They would be mad if I didn't mention them. So,
I can understand
shout
that.
out to the Dragon Band. I hope you guys are still doing well.
All right, fantastic. Great. So then after high school, you went to WKU. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I went to WKU, and it's funny. I always knew I wanted to do something with music because I've been a drummer since 2005.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so been doing it a long time, and I knew I had to do something with music, but I had all of these people whispering in my ear like, "Hey, you need to get the secure job in music."
Sure.
And that was what was being told to me at the time was music education,
right?
And becoming like a band director, for any of the grade levels. So yeah, I showed up to WKU one day, and it was almost like I threw a dart. Like people in movies, they throw a dart at a map and just select where they want to go.
Right.
That was me with my degree.
Okay.
So that's how I wound up with music education.
Yeah, I think especially parents, I think tend to have that outlook that you have to do something secure or something you can fall back on or something that you're guaranteed to be able to make a living wage and stuff like that. And that can be tough for kids, I think, who want to explore something like that's more in the arts, where it's not guaranteed that you're going to be able to go and make X amount of dollars a year doing that.
It's funny you mentioned that, though. It actually wasn't my parents. My parents, I know everybody loves their parents, but like I am so appreciative of my parents. They support whatever I do. So it wasn't
great.
that. It was just colleagues I was meeting and meeting through other band people and my friends and stuff. Not all of them, but yeah, they're just like, hey, make sure you get go into a job field that's more secure.
Sure.
So that's how I wound up there.
Yeah, and that has a lot of influence too. Your friends at that time for sure.
Yeah.
All right, great. So you got to Western, and so being a teacher isn't something that you grew up dreaming. Oh, I want to be a teacher.
No, it's not something that I ever dreamed up. Of course, whenever I started playing drums in 5th grade. Everybody has the fantasy of being a rock star.
Sure, of course.
So that was the dream when I was younger. But that dream died out fast when I got into high school. I would still love to play with talented people.
Sure.
But that's just not the set goal anymore.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you go through Western, and then you graduate with, what was your degree?
Music education.
Music education. Okay. Yeah. Get out of Western, and then where'd you go to after Western?
After Western, I taught a little bit here and there at a bunch of different schools.
Okay.
Especially when you're starting out, because I was big into the marching band game.
Sure.
Like a lot of people that aren't in the band community don't realize how big of a community the marching band world is.
That's for sure. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was never in band. I have 5 sisters and 1 brother. None of us were in band. Had no idea until my son got into band in high school and started having these marching competitions. He went to South Warren, and I started helping with them. And we were like, "Oh, this is a whole different world, a whole other world we didn't know existed." I had no idea band competitions were that big a deal.
Yeah, they're huge. And you go to other states like Texas. Texas. Everybody's going to get mad at me for getting the name of the school. I think it's Tarpon Springs that has the 2 bands, but their program is so large. They have a freshman, sophomore band and a junior, senior band.
Wow.
And each of those bands have I want to say 200 people in it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, so you said you taught a lot of different places as a music teacher. Is that correct?
Yeah. I taught, I went back to Warren Central. Brandon Salmon at the time was the band director, and I kept coming back to help him because he was a huge influence in my life. He was a positive experience in my music time. And then I went over to Greenwood and did a thing here or two there. Logan County, I student taught there.
Okay.
Just a number of schools, and the big one that I worked at for a while. I was a front ensemble guy and audio guy at Barron County High School.
Okay.
And that was for 2 years. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so you were a teacher for a while, and then you decide to get out of it. Is that what happens?
That's right. It's not for everybody.
Sure.
And
I understand. My wife's a teacher, and it's a brutal. It can be a very brutal career. It's just a tremendous amount of time, a lot of politics.
I'll go on record in saying I personally don't like any administration at any school, and I think most teachers would admit to that too if they didn't have a paycheck holding them hostage.
Okay.
But anyway, for me personally, it's hard to talk about it because you don't want anybody you were involved with to think that you have negative feelings towards them or anything like that, because it has nothing to do with the people it has nothing to do with the people I was involved with or the kids or anything like that.
Right.
It has everything to do with how I was interpreting the events that came before me and how I was reacting to them.
Right.
And I wasn't happy at all, but I just kept trying to force it because I was like, everybody says this is the most stable job. Like, be a grown up, make your money.
Right.
And eventually I got sick of it enough, and I got so unhappy, I just threw up my hands and said, I'm completely changing careers.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay. So it's time to change careers. So, what kind of interest did you have, and where did you decide you wanted to go after teaching?
Well, I'll tell you the exact moment I knew I was jumping ship.
Okay.
I was eating at Lost River Pizza. Shout out to Lost River Pizza. Your food's delicious.
Sponsorships.
Yeah. I was at Lost River Pizza on one of their wing nights like a year ago, eating with some friends, and one of my buddies pulled up his Snapchat and was like, "Hey, check out like what my buddy's doing." And he was working live sound at like a country concert or bluegrass concert.
Right.
And immediately I was like, "Hey, I like that a lot. Like, how do you land that gig?" Because I had just started getting into audio engineering and stuff like that, dipping my toes in the water.
Okay.
And he was like, he just graduated from Dark Horse, and he went for like 6 months, and now he's out running country concerts, live sound. So that night I went home and I Googled Dark Horse Institute and applied immediately. And I didn't even have a place to live yet in Nashville. I just applied to make sure I had a spot in the upcoming semester. And I planned everything around that. Just uprooted my life in Bowling Green and got the heck out of Dodge. Yeah.
Okay. Dark Horse Institute.
Yeah.
Is that just a sound engineering school, or what kind of programs do they have?
They have two programs. They have audio engineering, and then what most kids do is they go straight into the music business course, which is what I'm in currently.
Okay.
Yeah, I completed audio engineering back in January, and I just started this music business course at the end of March. Okay. And this will go until like the end of June.
Okay, the end of June. Well, that's right around the corner.
Yeah.
So great. After you get done with that, I mean, what's your outlook, or where are you hoping to kind of move into?
Well, here's the fantastic thing about all the people that were telling me to find a stable job. Mm-hmm. It's true that the jobs are a little bit more spread apart in the music industry, especially starting out.
Sure.
But that's also kind of the thing that I like about it, because I'm not actually ADD, but that's kind of how I describe my personality with work.
Okay.
I get really sick of the same thing over and over again, and I'm constantly wanting to do a new thing.
Right, do something different.
Well, in Nashville, I'm a drummer. I know how to be an audio engineer now. Mm-hmm. I'm in the music business class, and I've learned enough to take on any role in the music business world. And I do a little bit of singing. So there's a number of things I can pick up at any time. Like one weekend, I'll give you a perfect example. I was just making breakfast for myself on a Sunday morning. I get a call like, hey, our drummer just dropped out of this big session, like, and we need somebody to replace it immediately. Dropped what I was doing, didn't even finish breakfast, packed up my drums, and I headed to White House, Tennessee, and recorded like 2 songs and got paid for the day.
Wow, very cool, man.
Yeah, so, in the music industry starting out, the jobs are more scarce for sure, but I love the randomness of it. Like, you never know when you're going to be in a session just because somebody dropped out, or you never know when somebody's going to need an engineer because somebody dropped out doing like sound at a club or something.
Sure.
You never know. So.
That's neat, man. That's fantastic. That's on a very much smaller and different scale. That's one of the things I love about being a rideshare driver. Is I go out, I never know who I'm going to pick up, who's my passenger is going to be, and or where I'm going to end up that night.
Yeah.
There's times I've ended up in Hopkinsville or E-Town or Nashville or Owensboro. And like I said, you never know what kind of interesting people you're going to pick up that night. So so the music business course that you're in now, what kind of things does that kind of teach you or prepare you for?
It just gives you a rundown of the entire industry and how it all works. Everybody sees the artist, but nobody sees the people pulling the strings in the back.
Yeah, I mean, for every artist, there's how many, hundreds of people in the background.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your personal manager. I mean, if you're on tour, you've got your road manager, your tour manager, which is a different thing, even though they sound like the same job. You've got booking agents, you've got A&R reps that go out and discover new artists. You've got the publishing side, which is completely different. You can be just a pure songwriter and not perform any of your own stuff. I mean, there's millions of, not millions, but there's a lot of jobs. There's a lot of jobs in the music industry people don't know about, and that's kind of the point of the course is just to
expose you to everything.
Yeah,
that's good.
Especially a lot of the kids come straight from audio engineering into that, and a lot of them want to be artists themselves and put out their own stuff. So it helps you understand. Like, we go through contracts. And try to pinpoint where somebody is getting screwed over in a deal, or when how to get the upper hand on this or that number. And
which is a great thing to know, because I'm sure there's tons of young people that come to Nashville, don't know anything, and they get discovered by somebody, and they just get the screws put to them on the money.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of young artists that are so concerned with blowing up that they usually jump on their first deal.
Right.
And something that our teacher has said over and over again is typically you don't get an actual good deal until like after the 3rd one.
Sure.
Because everybody's trying to take advantage of you, and that's the purpose of the course, is because it's a great industry to be in. Unfortunately, there's a lot of sleazy people. I mean, it's just the nature of the business. I think you're going to find that in any industry, though. Right, but movies and TV like to play it up a little bit more.
I think so.
Every music manager in every movie is the villain of the movie.
You come to think of it, I can't think of anything to contradict you on that.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So the audio engineering portion is. You said that class is 6 months?
Yeah, it's 6 months, which seems short because it is short.
Right.
But their philosophy there is that, when you go to a 4-year college, you've got general education you have to take care of first.
Right.
There's a lot of extra stuff.
A lot of fluff, yeah.
Exactly, there's a lot of fluff. And I'm sorry, I forgot where I was.
That's okay.
There's a lot of fluff, and you end up delaying yourself 4 years when this industry is changing rapidly every single day.
Right.
I mean, you have people like Billie Eilish who just came out of nowhere. Are you familiar with her?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. She just came out of nowhere. And I just checked her tickets in Nashville, and they're worth like $330 now, lowest price.
Right.
Because I don't think they anticipated how big they knew she was going to get big. I don't think they anticipated her being that big.
No, yeah.
So their philosophy at Dark Horse is get you the essential knowledge and get you out. They need you in the industry as fast as possible,
and you'll learn the rest on the job.
Yeah, because exactly, because every songwriter I've met that writes their own stuff, and then like are artists themselves and actually go in and record it, they say that you typically don't break it big until like 8 years, 10 years in Nashville.
Right.
So there are incredibly talented people that you would think that should be all over the radio that are only like 6 years in Nashville, so they still haven't broke yet.
Sure.
So the faster that if you're getting in after 1 year of education compared to 4, that's kind of their idea. They want to get you in as fast as possible.
That makes sense. That's one thing I've mentioned to my wife before, that I've been to Nashville before, down on Printer's Alley or some little bar that holds maybe 20 or 30 people, and you'll hear people in there who can sing better than what you hear on the radio by far, but they've just never met the right person or been at the right place and gotten that break that they need. But that's interesting that it's only a 6 month class. It sounds like you get it. Is it pretty intense?
Yeah, it's very intense. You get thrown through the ringer. A lot of information comes at you real quick.
Sure.
But that's okay with me because I like classes like that.
Yeah. It's like a boot camp.
Yeah, like I said, I get bored with stuff easily. So it really never kept me bored because I was always staying on top of stuff. But it's very manageable. I mean, we had people from all different backgrounds in my class. You have your beat makers that are wanting to get into hip hop and EDM and stuff like that, and you have your typical singer songwriters. You have people like me who are ex teachers wanting to get into a new industry. Just people who want to be session guitarists, but also want to learn how to be an engineer. You have a variety of people. So.
Well, that's cool. I'll be eligible to retire from my day job in about 6 years. That might be something I need to look into. Man.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I forget his last name, but I had a guy named Kevin in my class, and I can't remember. I can't remember who he toured with, but I mean, he's a touring guitarist for a big country act.
Really?
And he recorded plenty of albums as a session guitarist at Dark Horse, and then ended up taking the audio engineering course just because he wanted to learn how to do it on his own.
That's cool.
I mean, you're sitting in class with somebody who's toured the world and seen everything the industry has to offer, and then he just sits through a 6-month course to learn how to do it himself.
Wow.
So
that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Number of personalities in there.
Yeah. I can see where you would get a lot of different, people from a lot of different backgrounds coming into that. Well, that's cool. And so once you get done with the music business, section, kind of what are your plans for the future?
Well, the number one thing I want to do is audio engineering.
Okay.
So whether that means I'm in the studio, I find a place to work at a studio and make that my home, or I'm able to get onto the live scene and I start touring with bands doing live sound. It could be a number of things. I could just work for a company that mixes and masters like the audio for movies or TV, or I mean, there's just a number of different things you can do. I'm down to be the tech guy for all of that, just because I am a people person and I do work well with people, but my preferred method is to just work by myself because I like if I'm under pressure, I like making sure the only one who I'm depending on is me.
Right. Yeah.
So if something messes up, I know what I messed up.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And there's still, you still have to act as a team member in some of the audio engineering jobs, but for the most part, you get to work more by yourself and depend on yourself more. But also I'm open to anything. I mean, I've talked to plenty. I've got to meet plenty of people at the businesses we're taking field trips to with music business. I've met the booking agents and the music managers and people at record labels, and all of their stories are, I was a musician doing this and that, and a gig opened up here, and 10 years later, now I'm managing this artist and this artist, and so I'm not opposed to the music business side of things either. As long as I'm picking up session gigs on the side as a drummer, I'm happy.
Okay, so how often do you do that, or is it pretty random?
Well, since I'm so busy with school, it is pretty random right now. And I just got to the town, and I'm starting to meet more and more people.
Right.
And really, how you get any job in Nashville is based on who you know. Obviously, it's not like that 100%, but it has a lot to do with, yeah, I know this guy that does this. Maybe we can call him in and get him to cover
Sure,
it.
yeah, you get a lot of, he played on something for
Exactly.
me, and I know he's dependable, so you don't have to worry about it.
Right, it's a lot of personal vouching.
Sure. Networking, I'm sure, is huge in that field.
Yes, very much so. So I played with this guy named Micah Howard. He's an up-and-coming country artist. And he had just recorded his album, his first album, and he's putting that out soon. I don't know when the actual release date it is, but it's coming out soon, and I played drums on that. And ever since then, I played with, in that session, I played with him and a guy named Daniel. Pretty much everything session drumming-wise has come out of that. They've recommended me to people, and that's how I picked up that one job, just, eating breakfast on a Sunday, and just got that random call. And then, of course, at Dark Horse, there's so many students, too, that are musicians that I just pick up random gigs with the students. Now, obviously, those are usually free because I'm helping out a colleague or friend. But I was just taking a smoke break out on the porch one day, and I heard this guy named Kevin complaining about how he needed to record drums, and he wasn't that good of a drummer. And I was like, I don't have anything going on after school. Like, I'll just stay after if you've got a kit set up. And he was like, yeah, man, like come play drums on it. That would be amazing. And so I just have little things like that happen too. And it's all about getting more and more people to vouch for you doing good work. So.
Sure. Well, that's cool because I'm sure that you never know when one of those connections is going to turn into something that could be like a long-term or a permanent gig, or one of these people is going to blow up. And
absolutely, yeah.
That could always, there's always that possibility.
Especially Micah. I think Micah is doing a lot of good work in Nashville. He's a veteran, and he's just got back not terribly long ago, and he's his music is very much influenced from his time in the war, and how it is coming back home to normal society, and he's writing a lot of good stuff, and I think he's trying to bring back more authentic country music.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with pop country, going on the radio right now, but I think that especially in the country genre, a lot of people are missing out on the real grounded, realistic country music.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And it seems like over the years the pendulum kind of swings back and forth. Like for several years you'll have like the real kind of gritty, authentic country sound that you're used to, and then it swings kind of more to the pop side for a while, and that gets popular. But then you get people who are like, oh, I want more of the original country sound, and it kind of swings back to the way. And I think we're definitely due kind of for a swing back that way.
There's nothing wrong with listening to 10 songs in a row about boots, blue jeans, and beer. Like that's if that touches you in a way musically. I'll more power to you.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of people that are just a little burnt out on that.
Sure.
So yeah.
Sure. Well, good deal. And then you mentioned to me that you're thinking of starting your own podcast. Tell me about that.
Yeah. In my experience in the music world, there's a lot of divide and a lot of back and forth between these different styles of musicians. You have your classically trained people, which is I started out as just a drum set player.
Okay.
So I was learning from a guy named Webb Hendricks, and he taught me all the way up until I was a sophomore in high school. But then after that, I got big into the concert band world through high school, and then doing a bunch of extracurricular stuff that involved more classical music, symphonic band music. And then obviously when I went into Western, that's when I spent like 100% of the time around that. So with that, there's a sophistication to it unfortunately, with sophistication comes a few bad eggs that are a little snooty about it.
Right.
And then there's the other side of the music world where, you've got your rock and roll guys. And, a lot of guitar players are playing chords that they don't even know the name of. They just learn by rote and just go by muscle memory, right. which is fine. And that's my whole point of the podcast, what I want to do. I want to try to better merge these two worlds together and hear everybody's story on how their musical journey happened. Because I think that a lot of people are in a lot of pain, torturing themselves mentally, like, I'm not going to make it because I didn't do this when I should have done this and done, I think everybody has their own journey. And this is true of any career field,
sure.
but especially with music, I think everybody has such a unique journey. We shouldn't discount others of how they got to where they are. And I was involved in the rock side of things, and the hip hop side of things more unsophisticated. And then I was also part of the sophisticated side with your symphonic bands, wind ensembles, and stuff like that. And I don't think that there's any reason people can't enjoy both and be actively part of both. And there are a few out there who are active in both. But I'd like to have guests, like maybe 3 times a week, different guests, talk about their personal journey. Whether you're a booking agent, a manager, a tour manager, a drummer, a guitarist, a guy who just dropped his first mixtape and is just handing it out on the street to people. If you're involved in music, I want to hear what you have to say, the way you think about it, the way you go about it, what your plans are for the future, and all that stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, if when you get started out, keep me up to date.
Yeah.
If there's anything that I can do to help out, I'd be more than happy to. I mean, being an audio engineer, I doubt I can help you out with the technology too much because I'm still learning. But I'll definitely plug your podcast and give you a shout out. And I may have a guest for you. My brother-in-law has been playing guitar since he was, I don't know, 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. Been in bands always. A lot of times he was in 2 or 3 different bands at the same time, and he still plays today. And he only learned to read music. It's been within the last 10 years, I know. Mm-hmm. And he can play. He's one of those people. He can listen to something, and in 10 minutes he can play it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I want to have him on my podcast sometime too, because I know he's just got a lot of stories that I've not even heard, even though I've known him for 35 years.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Let me ask you just, I throw out like a couple of random questions at the end that really don't have anything to do with your career or your story or anything.
All right.
But
let's hear it.
What's something that people seem to misunderstand about you?
Ooh, that's a good one. I've been told many times that when I get closer with people mm-hmm. down the road, they're like, man, I like you now, but whenever I first met you, I kind of thought you were a jerk. And I don't know what it is, man. I guess I need to smile more. I don't know. But I just I think I have a very dry sense of humor depending on, who I'm with, or I think it's gotten better over the years because I've learned my first impressions on people. But yeah, that's the biggest one. I'm not intentionally a jerk to anybody.
No, and I mean when I met you, a few weeks ago, I immediately thought you seemed like a really cool guy, which is why I asked you to be on the podcast.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's definitely the thing people misunderstand about me. Whenever they first meet me, they're questionable, and then a couple of days later, I guess they realize I'm not bad. So.
Good deal. Okay. This is a little bit similar, but what's something that you want people to know about you that most people don't know about you?
That's a good one. I don't know. We'll have to come back to that one.
Back to that. Sure. I got one other one. All right. What's something that's been a really significant event in your life, and how has it affected you?
That's a good one. I mean, there's been a lot of things that have changed my course of life. I guess the most recent one, I was in a car wreck not too long ago.
Oh.
I was in a car wreck about maybe 3 weeks ago. And everybody was fine. It was okay. And it was the first one I'd ever been in. But it kind of, shook me up because it was a bad one. Like, like the car was totaled. I was just a passenger. And it just made me reevaluate everything.
Sure.
Just what was important, what was not. I mean, that's a very cliched thing to say after you get into a car wreck. But
it's true.
But the reason people say it is because it's true.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Luckily for me, what was great about that is I didn't have a lot of reflection to do because I reflected. I was like, what am I doing with my life? And am I making the right decisions? And for me, the answer was yes. Like I was satisfied with where I was at. I still have a lot of room to grow as a musician, as an individual, like we all do. But for me to come out of a really bad car wreck and be satisfied with the career that I'm in now,
right?
Something I couldn't have said 2 years ago.
Yeah. So that sounds like you're on the right path anyway.
Yeah. For sure.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll let you off the hook on the other question because you've just been awesome guests on the podcast. And Adam, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, man. And I'm looking forward to staying in touch and seeing how your path goes and where you end up. And when you start your podcast, like I said, I'll be happy to listen to it and give you a plug on the show and maybe send some listeners your way and maybe even send you a guest.
Awesome. Yeah, I would appreciate that, man. It was good talking with you.
Hey, good talking with you too, Adam. Thank you so much, man.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
It's time for rideshare tips and tricks.
This week's tip is for rideshare passengers. Please, guys and gals, make sure you're getting in the right car when you go out to get into your Lyft or your Uber. I know myself and a lot of other rideshare drivers, we've learned to keep our doors locked and just crack our windows down when we pull up to like a busy place like a bar. And we'll confirm with the person, make sure that they're our passenger, the correct passenger, before we unlock our doors and let them in. I can drive up to a bar late in the night, and I'll have 3 or 4 groups of people try to get in my car and not even ask if I'm their driver. They'll just try to get in, and I ask, what driver are you waiting for? And this is how I do it. I'll say, what driver are you looking for? And they'll give me a name. If it's not my name, then they're obviously not my passenger. And they have that checks and balances for a reason. Because I can ask them, what driver are you looking for? Because they should have my name on their app. And I know that name, and they should know that. And then to protect them, they can ask me, what passenger are you here for? And I should have their name. So that protects both the driver and the passenger. But please take the few extra minutes it takes to confirm everything. Because when you call for a Lyft or an Uber, as a passenger, you get a lot of information on your app about us. All we get about the passenger is we get a name, and half the time it's a bogus name. They can pretty much put in anything they want to. So we don't know their real name, and we don't have a picture. And so all we know is this name that's in the app. So we're looking for somebody who kind of looks like they're looking for a ride. But when you're a passenger, your app's going to tell you the name of your driver. It's going to give you our picture. It's going to give you the make and model of our car, and it gives you our license plate number. So take the few minutes that it takes to confirm all that information before you just hop in a car. It can save your life, literally. Not too long ago in South Carolina, there was a young lady who was 21 years old. She was a senior, and she had gone out with her friends for a night, and they'd been at a bar. And it was time to go home, so she called an Uber, and she walked outside. And they have it all on video camera. She walks outside. She sees this Impala that she thinks is her car. And she just hops in. And unfortunately, the driver was not even an Uber driver. He was just there. And she hopped in his car, and he took her out and murdered her. And he dumped her body in the woods. And luckily, some turkey hunters just happened to be out there the next day, about 12 hours later. And they found the body and contacted the authorities. And they were able to track this guy down and arrest him. So please, just make sure you take that little bit of extra time, confirm the make, model, car, the picture, and the license plate number. And it keeps things safe for everybody.
It's time for Rideshare in the News.
This week in Rideshare News, there is really 2 big stories. The first big story is the strike that happened. Over the past few years, there's always been drivers on different Facebook groups and different groups like that have been trying to organize people to take like a day off of Uber or Lyft all at the same time, just to kind of send a message and try to share how important to Uber and Lyft the drivers are and how much they depend on us. which I can understand that because I know there's people who started driving for Uber or Lyft in California when they first came out, and they were making around $3 per mile. And now they're down to 60 or 70 cents per mile. So over a period of, 5 years or so, some of these drivers have taken up to 8 pay cuts in that time, which I can't think of another job where over a 5-year period, you're going to take 8 pay cuts and still be working for them. And it's just hard when you're out there driving, trying to make money, and whether it's full time or you're doing it on the side, trying to make, extra money, when you work so hard and you try to do a good job, and then all of a sudden they cut your pay. Knock on wood, it hasn't happened here so far, but we expect it to at some point for sure. We happen to be pretty lucky that we have one of the higher per mile rates in the country here in Bowling Green. The other big story, of course, was the reason for the strike on Wednesday is because Uber was having its initial public offering on Friday. And this has been talked about for a long time. Lyft and Uber were both going back and forth wondering who was going to be the first company, the rideshare company, to have their initial public offering. And of course, Lyft had theirs a little bit ago. And so there's a lot of big hype about the Uber IPO because back in, last of 2018, they were talking about how huge it was going to be, and that possibly looking at a $120 billion valuation for the company, which is huge considering that Uber is still not making money. Neither of the rideshare companies are making money. I think the first quarter, I'll have to look and double check the numbers, but I think the first quarter that Lyft has reported since they had their IPO, they've lost over $1 billion. And Uber has been burning through money for several years. They have all this investment money, and they're doing research into this, and they're in 50 something countries, I think, and they go through a lot of money really quickly. So that was kind of the two things, the IPO and then I said the Uber strike that happened on Wednesday. And they actually did draw some attention. It got a lot of press coverage actually across the country in some of the bigger cities, especially. I saw a live broadcast they were doing from New York on one of the TV stations there. They were doing a protest, drivers driving and protesting, and also out in California and some of the cities out there. But it was all around the world. They were having different people in different markets trying to strike that day. And I did not drive on that day. I did not. Normally, I don't drive on Wednesdays, so it wasn't a big sacrifice on my part. But if that would have been one of my normal days, I would not have driven, I don't think. The IPO, like I said, came out on Friday, and it was not looking good all day. They came in at much lower price than they thought it was going to be. It debuted below its what they had set for the IPO price, and then when the day was over, it had dropped over 7%, and the valuation was below $80 billion, which is still a boatload of money, but not even close to the $120 billion that they had been talking about back in December. So we'll have to see what happens with the stocks. I personally have not invested in either Lyft or Uber at this point, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to. I'm still kind of evaluating.
It's time for the interesting story of the week.
Okay, this story happened to me about probably 6-8 weeks ago, and it was definitely one of the, if not the most uncomfortable rides I've probably given in my time as a rideshare driver. I got a call to come pick up someone at a local bar here called Dolphy's Lounge. And when I got there, two ladies walked out. They were in their probably 30s, early 30s, I'd say. And one of them, you could tell, had been drinking a little too much. And her other friend kind of had her arm around her and walked her out to my car. And when we got out there, she was helping her friend in the car. And she tells me, the one lady tells me, hey, I called this Uber for my friend. She's just had enough. She's ready to go home for the night. But I'm staying here. But I want you to make sure and contact me when she gets home safely. And so I had the lady, I gave her my actual cell number because when a passenger contacts an Uber driver or an Uber driver contacts a passenger, it goes through an anonymous number, well, not an anonymous number, but a Lyft or Uber number. So like if I text a passenger of mine and ask them, hey, where's the best spot to pick you up? The number that they see on their phone is not my actual cell number. And if they answer me back, I see a number, but it's also a Lyft or Uber number. It's not their actual cell number. So I told the lady, well, once I in the ride, I'll have no way to contact you. So here's my cell number. Text me. And then when I get your friend home safely, then I'll text you and let you know. And so she said that was fine. And it turns out her friend had never been in an Uber before. And it also turned out that her friend had just gone through a really, really tough divorce, it sounded like. And this was kind of her first time out after this had happened. So all this I didn't know at the time. But her friend gets her in the car. She's sitting up in the front seat. And so we agree that I'm going to contact her and let her know when I get her friend home safely. And then all of a sudden the passenger turns and just looks at me and she's like, you're going to take me out and rape me, aren't you? And I was like, oh, time out. No, that's not how this works at all. I said, I have a camera in my car, records everything. I have 5 sisters and 3 daughters, and I take a lot of pride in taking good care of my passengers, especially my female passengers, making sure they get home safely. So that's it. I'm taking you home. I'm going to make sure you get home safely, and that's all. And her friend's trying to calm her down a little bit, and she tells her, there's nothing to worry about. This guy's had a background check, and he's going to take good care of you. He's going to call me and let me know, when he gets you home. So we take off, and she lives about, probably 25, 30 minutes away, kind of way out in the sticks, pretty much kind of out in the boonies. So we're heading out, and we get on, kind of a country road, and she turns again and says, is this where you're going to pull off the road and rape me? And I'm like, nope, not how this works. I'm just going to make sure you get home safely. And she did that like at least twice on the way home. And so then after about 15 or maybe 20 minutes, I look over and she's passed out. So I'm like, that's great. She's good. Just have a nice quiet rest of the ride home and get out to where the GPS tells me her house is at. But I can't see any street numbers because the houses are set pretty far back off the street. And so I kind of say, hey, it's time to wake up, And it's so funny. She wakes up and it's like a completely different person. She wakes up and she's chipper and cheerful. And I'm like, which one's your house? And she kind of looks around. It takes her a minute to kind of wake up. And then she's like, points it out. And she's like, hey, that's my house right there. And I'm like, okay, great. So we pull in the driveway and pull up, and she's like, okay, you're going to make sure I get in safely, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'll sit here. I always sit in the driveway or wherever and make sure my passengers get in safe before I take off. And so then she goes, what time is it? And I look at the clock and I'm like, it's 1:45 in the morning. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's really late. You can just stay here tonight. and I'm like, nope, still not how this works. I'm going to let you out here. You're going to go in and go to bed and have a good night's sleep. And I'm going back to work some more and make some more money. And so it was just really weird that it went from the point of when I was picking her up, she's fearful and afraid that I was going to rape her. And then when I get there and let her out at home, she's like, hey, it's late. You can just stay here tonight if you want to. Definitely one of the stranger rides that I've had for sure. So after she got inside her house, I texted her friend to let her know that she was home safely. And then that's when her friend started telling me, hey, she just went through a bad divorce and this is her first time out. She's never been in Uber. So that's when I found out all that information. And then the next morning I actually texted the friend and said, hey, just wanted to see how your friend was doing. And she said, oh yeah, I've already talked to her this morning. She's doing much better. And, thank you for making sure she gets home safely. And so it was a good ending, happy ending to the story anyway. I'm recording this segment of the show on Mother's Day. So I just want to take a minute to say happy Mother's Day to my mom and to my beautiful wife and to all my sisters who are moms and also to any of my past or future rideshare passengers who are moms. Thank you so much for all that you do. Being a mom is certainly a tough job, and I just hope you're all celebrated today. Thanks so much for listening to this edition of Lyfting with Larry. If you like what you heard, please take a few minutes and leave a review and a rating in iTunes Store or wherever you get your podcast at. Also, subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss out on any future episodes. And if you like this kind of a podcast, I'd like to recommend to you another podcast that deals with rideshare. It's called GR Rideshare Adventures. These guys put on a great show. It's always entertaining, always funny, and always full of a lot of good information. So give them a listen as well. Thanks, God bless, and be safe out there.
Thank you for listening to Lyfting with Larry. To subscribe to the podcast, check out other episodes, and keep up to date, head to liftingwithlarry.com.